Name something that gets passed around.
A joint.
A joint.
Legalized marijuana is always a very difficult question.
The time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
From now on, I smoke weed exclusively with white people.
Well, I'll get higher next time.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man, the Snoopy Poop Dog.
There's definitely cannabis in there, and it makes sure that I can sleep now.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
Don't piss off your old dealer.
Marijuana is not the kind of thing that ought to be legalized.
I know you're not supposed to admit that you smoke pot, but I don't drink alcohol.
Let's get out of here. I have some really good weed back at the hotel.
I used to smoke marijuana.
I don't care if an adult wants to smoke marijuana. They shouldn't go to prison for it either.
Oh, you big fat liar. Welcome back, everybody. Time for Toker Talk Radio. And if you follow me on my social media accounts, whether that be on Facebook or Twitter, probably noticed me getting all chatty and active earlier this morning. Yes, indeed, I certainly was a little bit perturbed earlier this morning. It's a very good reason for that. So earlier this morning, I received a reply to an email that I had sent out. Basically, what was going on is that trying to generate more segments for the show, right? Want to have people from all areas of the marijuana reform world involved. So I sent out a blast to just about every contact I've got in the reform movement. All the different groups, all the different organizations. I sent an email out to one particular parents' organization. I won't mention the name, but you can look it up on my Twitter feed if you like. But I sent one out to the main address of this organization, and it was answered by the founder of the organization, who, well, it wasn't directly answered, actually. He responded to my request by posting a post on his Facebook page, which I can't read because I'm blocked from it, where in the Facebook page he just recited how much he hates my guts, what a terrible human being I am, how awful I am, which is fine. I mean, as my dad once told me, son, everybody don't like you. You don't got to like everybody. So that's fine. You hate me all you want. But as he went through his rant, he posted that he would, quote, I'm not a violent person, but don't push me, prick, end quote. And, quote, if you were standing in front of me right now, I would punch you in the neck, end quote. So, yeah, and here we go. And now just, don't want to say that, it's not true. There it is. I've actually got the post on our video page right this moment. So I'm not talking out of turn. This is actually what he had written. And so there you can see the, I'm not a violent person, Russ, but don't push me, prick. And here's the other one we can see is, what happened, if you were in front of me, I would have to punch you in the neck. Next time. For now, fuck off, loser. So if you're wondering, like how my morning went, that's how my morning went, and I dealt with that. So I just thought it would be a good idea to take this beef and make something positive out of it. Because, like I said, I can take people, and this guy, this is not anything new. He's been slandering me and libeling me on the internet for years now. His favorite thing is to take and make little meme pictures, the little pictures that you share on Facebook. And usually it's something comparing me to a gay prostitute or something, saying that I'm diseased or whatever else it might be. And that's fine. That comes with the territory. I am a public figure and people can talk shit. But you want to threaten me with violence? Well, I'm going to call you on it. I'm going to call you on that, Mickey. Come on, bring it. Let's do it. And I thought it'd be a good idea if we brought this to a charity boxing match. Let's have a charity boxing match, the two of us, because there's plenty of people who would pay to see this on pay-per-view, I'm telling you. As much as Mickey Martin and a bunch of other people hate me, there's an equal or greater amount of people who dislike Mickey. as well. So we'd both have pretty large contingents of fans that would pay to see such a thing. And I figured, if we got this beef, let's have it out. You want to punch me in the neck? There's my neck, right there. So we could do it at a charity boxing match, 3 rounds, anytime, anywhere, any place. And we'll have a third party be the neutral holder of the funds for the pay-per-view to go to the charity of the winner's choice. I haven't decided which charity I might support, but the charity of the winner's choice. And, of course, he's backed out of it. He's not going to do it. His first complaint was that he didn't want to get my pig, fat, sweaty, diseased sweat body all over him, or something like that. I forget the exact quote on that one. And then the latest reply is something about him being an adult and responsible and well-respected, and he wouldn't stoop to a charity boxing match that would give me attention or something. Funny how earlier he was willing to stoop to punching me in the neck if he saw me, so. But when called on it, we find out that, we just find out that some people, whatever. I can take it. But here's the good news is that he has said that he now considers me hostile, and the next time he sees me at an event, we can fight right then if I've, quote, got the juice, end quote, to do it. Well, I'll tell you what, not at an event. I'll gladly step outside in the parking lot. That'll be fine. We can do that. You want to go with mixed martial arts rules. That's fine with me, too. Just so long as you're not going to bring a bunch of your little flunkies to gang up on me or anything. I'm fine with that. We can do it that way. Let's do that. That'd be fun. I'd prefer that the fisticuffs we exchange would benefit a charity, would help other people. But I'm all fine with us getting it down in whatever method you feel would be appropriate. So there you go. That was my morning. Hope you had a better one. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the data on Washington and Colorado youth and their use of marijuana, which, surprise, hasn't changed since legalization. We're back right after this.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
Afghanistan produces most of the world's heroin from the opium poppy crops that thrive in its dry climate. Heroin is produced for the black market through a process of opium poppy cultivation and refinement. In the later stages of making the drug, hydrochloric acid is mixed into the heroin. This process leads to a relatively pure drug. This purity, even when reduced when the heroin is cut for sale, can make it very dangerous to take. So, what does all this mean once heroin enters your body? Well, first you need to know how your body controls pain. Your body controls pain using internal chemicals called opioids. These stimulate opioid receptors on your nerve cells to reduce pain and make you feel more relaxed. Heroin also has this effect. In addition, it triggers the release of dopamine, the brain's natural reward chemical, into the areas of the brain that can make you feel high. So heroin acts like your body's natural opioids, but more so. It floods areas of the brain to give you a very powerful, pain-free, relaxed sensation. Trying to recreate this and the effects of dopamine release can lead to very severe addiction to the drug. However, heroin is much less controllable than the body's opioids. Sometimes heroin can cause your body to relax so much you stop breathing completely and for good. For friendly, confidential drugs advice, talk to Frank on 0800 77 6600 or go to talktofrank.com.
This has been the Russ Belville Show's anti-drug public service announcement of the day, exclusively on RadicalRuss.com.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
But I think it is the prerogative of the states to make that determination. I think the people of Colorado have the right to make the decision that they've made under the Constitution.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere.
This is Cannabis Facts from Robert Platshorn's thesilvertour.org. Supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., poised to lead America's hemp revolution at hempinc.com. In 1937, the second most prescribed medicine, marijuana, was banned. It wasn't about marijuana. The paper, oil, and chemical industries lobbied to end hemp farming. No longer labor-intensive, an acre of hemp produced more quality paper than 4 acres of trees. Plastics and fibers could be produced from a plant. Hemp can even produce 10 times the energy of today's ethanol. As marijuana prohibition ends, many states now allow farmers to again grow hemp. This was Cannabis Facts from thesilvertour.org, an educational nonprofit supported by our donors and Hemp Inc., a public company poised to process America's hemp crop at hempinc.com.
Yarr! Thar be pirates here! Har, 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 har. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 12 after the hour, and once again... Oh, I didn't turn that back up, did I? I bet those break ads were really quiet, weren't they? Sorry about that. So much to do, so little time. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. Toker Talk Radio. In this segment, we're going to talk about the data on teenagers in Washington and Colorado. Because when we were beginning the process of legalization, passing the first states to legalize marijuana, Washington and Colorado in 2012, Kevin Sabet and all the rest of the prohibitionists warned us that this would be the end of civilization as we know it. And of course... So the big worry was we're going to legalize weed. The kids will think it's cool. The kids will have that much more access to it. They'll send their friends into the shop, their 21-year-old friends in to buy it for them. They'll be just puffing away day after day. It would be a pot apocalypse. So, according to the state-run survey of 37,000 middle and high school students in Washington, their use is unchanged. Yep. Since 2012, use by the kids is unchanged. Did not happen. No big deal. Let me show you this on the screen. Those of you watching in the YouTube there, there's the graph right there. Washington's kids not going to pot. Zoom in on that if you like. There we go. Not going to pot. Monthly use among 6th, 8th, 10th, and 12th graders in Washington. And 2012 right there toward the end. And what do you know? Flatlined there for the 6th graders. Went down for the 8th graders. Went down for the 10th graders. And went slightly down for the 12th graders. How weird is that? We legalize weed and fewer kids are using it. What do you know? Now, this also is the case in Colorado. Teen marijuana use in Colorado decreased during 2014 and 2015, according to the federal surveys. A separate survey run by the state showed rates of use among teenagers flat from 2013 to 2015 and down since 2011. Fewer kids using pot. This is blowing the minds of the prohibitionists. They can't figure it out. They have no idea why this is happening. Nora Volkoff, the director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, late last year said, quote, "We had predicted, based on the changes in legalization, culture in the U.S., as well as decreasing perceptions among teenagers that marijuana use was harmful and that accessibility and use would go up. But it hasn't gone up." End quote. Yeah, the director of the National Institutes on Drug Abuse can't figure out why more kids didn't start using pot. And what she mentions there, absolutely true as well. The perceptions among teenagers that marijuana is harmful have declined precipitously. They've gone down quite a bit, which isn't a surprise when these kids were told that marijuana was the deadly dangerous drug that leads straight to heroin, costs you 6 IQ points, and will make you infertile. And then they learn the truth about it. It's not so much their perception of risk is declining so much as their understanding of the facts is increasing. And they have less disapproval of people that use pot. They have less problem with it. They have less moral disapproval of people that use pot. And yet, they're not all running out to go smoke weed. Now, I can tell you why this is the case, and anybody who knows teenagers or was a teenager knows why this is the case. It's because teenagers already had their access. As many teenagers as want to smoke pot can smoke pot already under prohibition. Prohibition is least effective in dealing with the use of marijuana by kids. Number one, most of these kids can get it from other kids that are dealing. Right? There's 1 million teenagers in America who deal marijuana in their school. 44% of the kids in school, according to a CASA survey, maybe this is 2012, I think, 44% of the kids in school knew someone who was a drug dealer in their school, and 91% of the time marijuana was on that dealer's menu. You know what wasn't on the dealer's menu? Cigarettes and alcohol. 6% for cigarettes, 1% for alcohol. Or maybe it's flip-flopped, but it was low. Why? Because there's no profit in being a cigarette dealer. There's no profit in being a tequila dealer or a beer dealer in school. Anybody who wants to get the beer can get the beer, and the price of the beer is so low, there's no real profit margin. There's no easy way to be a beer dealer in school. But it's easy as hell to be a weed dealer. Oh, yeah, you can get $300 an ounce for that shit. You can pack 2-3 bags and make a month's salary to a teenager. So prohibition's the least effective way, and this is proven by the fact that we look through these same surveys, these federal surveys. Monitoring the Future has asked 12th grade students since 1975, if you wanted to get some pot, how easy would it be? And they could mark a bunch of choices. There's like fairly easy, easy, not easy, impossible, whatever. They got a bunch of choices. 80 to 91% of the time since 1975, regardless if it was Nixon's war on drugs in the 70s, Nancy Reagan just say no in the 80s, mandatory minimums in the 90s, George W. Bush in the 2000s, and medical marijuana coming up in the 2000s. No matter what, whether marijuana use has gone way up or way down, 80 to 91% of the teenagers, the 12th graders, say that it would be easy or fairly easy to get a hold of some marijuana. They already had their access. Legalization wasn't going to change anything for them as far as where they're getting their marijuana from or how much they choose to use. They're already getting as much as they want from whoever they want, whenever they want. That already existed under Prohibition. But you know who wasn't getting their weed under Prohibition? Guys my age who couldn't go behind the shop class at lunch period to be able to get the deal from the teenage kid. Guys my age aren't going to sit in a Walgreens parking lot for 40 minutes waiting for a late bag that's short. And that's evidenced by seniors being the fastest growing demographic in the legal weed states for regular monthly use. It's obvious.
But isn't marijuana or dope illegal? Only for those who enjoy it.
All right, that sound means that it's 4:20 here in the Pacific Time Zone, and that means that it's time for us to take our union-mandated safety briefing. I hope you're safe. We'll be right back to talk about a pro-marijuana church in Alabama next.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
Enough is enough. Let's try a new way. Let's try a new policy.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere. Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that.
Are you sure this is legal?
I don't know. It's fun though, isn't it?
A public service message from the Russ Belville Show. I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Barack has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Sounds like a skunk. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on cannabisradio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 22 after the hour, and a big shout out to our chat room on YouTube. John Thomas, Reverend Richard, Solar Extract is out there today. And I'm just wowed by the 420 post by Jeff Walenta. I never smoked at all until October 2015 when recreational sales started in Oregon. That's awesome. I mean, I've always wanted to meet somebody who never smoked weed until it was legal to do so. I think that's fascinating. I wonder if it was a question of access or you didn't want to break the law. I mean, the whole concept fascinates me. I like that. That's interesting to me. All right, let's get to some more marijuana news. This one coming from Alabama.com, AL.com. Pro-marijuana church active in Alabama, members tout God and cannabis. And it's a story of the Oklahoma, I think it's Oklahoma. I'm not sure of the pronunciation. I think it's Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Native American Church of Inner Light in Alabama, which is a subsidiary. It's one of the churches in the Oklahoma Church, the Oklahoma Native American Church. Now, this is an important point because the Oklahoma Native American Church won a court case with the Supreme Court that said they are allowed to use peyote and ayahuasca. And this comes through the case, it comes through the law that was signed by President Clinton, the Religious Freedom Defense Act, Religious Freedom Restoration Act. Yeah, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, RFRA. And what it stated basically is it set up a series of tests here for the courts to use to validate whether a religion could use a controlled substance in its church, in its ceremonies as a sacrament. So it came because of legitimate native tribal type of churches who have used hallucinogens for centuries in their practice, who got busted for doing so. That made its way through the courts, and it, caused a lot of, controversy over this particular issue because the First Amendment of the Constitution gives us the right to practice our religion. Government cannot restrict that unless they have a really damn good reason. Like, I mean, you know, you can't have voodoo priests sacrificing virgins or something. And pardon me if I said voodoo and that's not the right religion, but Aztecs, let's say. No mean to offend here. But you can't do virgin sacrifices because your religion says so, because obviously the state has a compelling interest to prevent murder. We can't have people being murdered because your God said so, right? So that there's always been this kind of test. You know, are we significantly burdening the practitioners of a religion by restricting or eliminating their method of sacrament, their sacrament they use in their services? So as this went through the courts and it finally got decided, and then RFRA was written to address that, it basically set up a test that the government had to show this compelling interest and that it was the least restrictive means of dealing with the problem. So the compelling interest in the government's case right here, looking from the federal government's point of view, is like, look, we got this Controlled Substances Act. And it says all these drugs are illegal and nobody can have them for any reason whatsoever. Not even medicine. No, can't have it. Illegal drugs. And most of those are hallucinogens. So that's the compelling interest of the federal government, which is we got this law we need to enforce, and our compelling interest is to make sure people don't use those drugs. Now, you can debate whether that's right or wrong or anything that should be in the federal government's purview. I sure don't think it should, but that's where it is. That's the way the law is written right now. So when they evaluated these cases, they evaluated these Brazilian tribes and Native American tribes and other religious practitioners. They have to do these legal tests as to see whether or not the federal government is substantially burdening and that this is the least restrictive means they could use to deal with the problem, to deal with their compelling interest. And they found that in the case of ayahuasca and peyote, they're not real popular. You don't have a whole bunch of people tripping on ayahuasca, tripping on peyote in every city all across America, rural places as well. It's just not a very common drug. Very few people use it. And the people that do use it tend to be, more often than not, people that are part of these native tribes and these churches that are using it for a spiritual purpose. So the courts ruled under this RFRA that, hey, this is too restrictive. The government has a compelling interest to stop people from using peyote and ayahuasca, but these people are obviously, it's just obvious, they're native tribes. They've used this for centuries. It's obvious they're not using it for drug purposes. It's obvious they're using it for spiritual purposes. And if we let them do that, it's not really going to stop the government from busting your average dreadlocked white kid who wants to trip on ayahuasca or something at the Burning Man or something. So the government has to let these tribes use those powerful hallucinogens because they're not that popular. Letting them do that isn't going to stop them from busting people who use these hallucinogens. But when it comes to cannabis, there's a problem. The problem with cannabis is it's too damn popular. The people who use cannabis as a religious sacrament are a tiny sliver of the overall population of people who use cannabis. So it's not so easy to tell that guy's a religious user and that guy's a recreational user. It's really hard. Especially confounding the fact is that these religions that claim to use cannabis as a sacrament aren't just Native American churches, where you could probably make a good case for that, or Rastafarians or Coptic Christians, where you could point to a long history of its use and could visually and spiritually and culturally just see that they are spiritual users of ganja as sacrament. The problem with cannabis is that I use it to get high and you use it for medicine, and lots of us use it for completely non-spiritual purposes. So when the government does these tests, these legal tests on, well, are we substantially burdening the religion? Well, yeah, you are substantially burdening the religion because that's part, the sacrament, ganja sacrament's part of their religion. You're substantially burdening them, but is it the least restrictive means that could be used to address the government's compelling interest? Well, the government's compelling interest is to stop everybody from smoking pot. And they know if they let those churches use cannabis as sacrament, all of a sudden there will be 26 million, 28, 20, 30 million religious people in America. If we let these Native American churches, now, in the case of the Native American churches, they may have a really good case because their tribal members are registered under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. There's like 120 of them. It's obvious they're using it for sacrament. There's been decisions in other states like Hawaii that may be favorable to them. I don't know about Alabama, but there's other decisions. They may have a better case, but in general, the whole issue of cannabis as a sacrament is confounded by the fact that a lot of these churches are brand new type startup churches that don't have any other rituals or philosophies other than, hey, we like to smoke pot and we smoke a lot of it and we think it's really awesome. I agree with that, by the way. I'm just saying, as religions go, it's going to be hard to convince a judge that's a religion. Okay? And federal law doesn't define religion, by the way. The closest federal law comes to touching on what a religion is in IRS code when it comes to determining their tax-exempt status. You want to learn more about that angle of things, start taking a look into Scientology. Do a little research on Scientology getting its tax-exempt status, and you'll see what a minefield federally trying to define what religion is. So, not even disregarding their religion. I'm not saying the sacrament's wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying, the way the federal government sees it, if we let churches smoke pot as sacrament, we can't stop people from smoking pot to get high. And it's sad. It's a sad decision because as far as I'm concerned, and this, again, my personal belief on this, because as you know, I'm an atheist, arguing for the religious right to use cannabis is too small a vision of what religion and the First Amendment really means. The First Amendment's freedom of religion and freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and freedom of petition and freedom to assemble, those 5 freedoms all encapsulated within the First Amendment as a whole paint an even bigger picture that presents our First Amendment as the right of conscience, the right of our mind, the right of our own mental sovereignty. We can think and believe whatever we want, and the government can't force us to do otherwise. So when you say, well, I have this book, and it talks about this God who said, I've got to have this plant, and it's a sacrament, that's too small an argument. It doesn't even matter if you have a book or a God or a direction, or whether or not the use you choose to do is spiritual or sacramental. As far as I'm concerned, all use is none ya. It's none your business, federal government. And I, as a free citizen, as an adult human being, have the human right to do with my body and brain anything I choose, even if it's deleterious to my body and brain, because it's mine, because I'm free. If I don't have the right to do that, if I don't have the right to alter my mind, and again, not just with marijuana, freaking hallucinogens, amphetamines, PCP, knock yourself out. Have a good time. Your body, your brain, you want to fry it? Be my guest. So long as you don't harm others, we're cool. But that's what it means to be free. If freedom only means the right to live your life in a proscribed way, in a certain way that is approved by the government, then you're not free. Freedom means the right to mess up your life, to make bad decisions. That's what free will is all about. And it kind of makes me chuckle a little as an atheist when I have talked to religious people for so long about what their concepts of God's will and free will that have been given to man, to not acknowledge that free will means the right to go to hell just as much as the right to go to heaven. Free will means just as much right to believe Satan as to believe God, or Vishnu, or Odin, or Ra, or Anubis, or whoever else you choose. But that's part of the First Amendment, our freedom of conscience, our freedom to think, feel, be whoever, whatever we want, whatever we believe, so long as we do not harm others. So to me, this church in Alabama, fighting for its right to use cannabis religiously, is just one of many sets of people in many different circumstances who all have the right to use cannabis for whatever purpose they so choose. And in fighting for just this religious exception, I fear there's a similar problem that we might face like we faced with medical marijuana, where we carve out these little accepted groups out of our marijuana pie, and then those groups then fight to maintain their own territory and their own separateness and their own special privileges. I shouldn't be denied the ability to use cannabis under the First Amendment just because I don't believe in a God with no evidence. Because you've got a book and a story, you have a right I don't have? Poppycock. I've always wanted to say poppycock on the air. I think this may be the first time. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we return, an interesting fight brewing in California. Not that one, but an interesting fight brewing in California where cannabis businesses are up against the powerful Teamsters Union. We'll tell you why when we come back.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Get your tickets now for the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference happening one day only in Eugene, Oregon on Friday, April 28th. You'll learn all about the latest OLCC regulations for adult use cannabis, including testing requirements, tech and branding, taxes and distribution, and the latest developments in medical marijuana regulations. OMBC features networking with Oregon's leading experts in marijuana, including State Senator Floyd Przansky. You'll also get to hear from author, actor, and punk rock icon Henry Rollins delivering the keynote address. Early bird pricing is available for conference-only and VIP passes, which get you access to the VIP networking events featuring Henry Rollins and other speakers. It's the 2017 Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. Tickets available now at OregonMBC.com. That's OregonMBC.com before April 14th to get your early bird pricing. OregonMBC.com.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
People addicted to marijuana are 3 times more likely to be addicted to heroin.
Okay, well, maybe you're high, too.
Midnight, July 1st, 2015, adult marijuana prohibition came to an end in Oregon. Immediately, over 400,000 adults who consume cannabis responsibly were no longer criminals. This is what freedom sounds like. Brought to you by Portland Normal.
Remember, friends, there's more to life than marijuana. I just can't remember what it is. Why'd I come in here? This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody. 37 after, and in this segment, interesting story from the Sacramento Bee on how the Teamsters Union is arising as an opponent to some of the marijuana legalization groups, some of the marijuana industry groups in California. And it all concerns the issue of distribution. On one side, we've got the California Manufacturers and Technology Association, the California Retailers Association, the California Restaurant Association, the California Business Properties Association, and the National Federation of Independent Business, all on one side. And you note, those aren't cannabis-related groups. Those are like mainstream California groups, business groups. As well as the California Cannabis Industry Association have come down against the idea that the Teamsters Union is pushing, which is mandatory independent distribution for growers and manufacturers. In other words, a grower or an edible manufacturer or a hash manufacturer, whatever, could not take their product directly to the pot shop for it to be sold. They would have to go through an independent distributor. You know, like what we got for beer. There's the beer distributors, there's the beer makers, and there's the beer sellers. And Of course, the groups on the other side are very much against that. Bill Dombrowski, president of the California Retailers Association, told Sacramento Bee, quote, "Our experience with alcohol is that the distributors have too much power. They control the flow of the merchandise. They control pricing to some extent. We want to point this out and make sure that people understand that this is not a perfect model," end quote. Now, of course, the distributors like the idea of a mandatory independent distribution model because then they get a cut of the cannabis industry. And nobody's opposing the idea of independent distributors. You want to put together a company and have it distribute marijuana for growers or whatever, and maybe do so more efficiently with greater reach, go for it. They're just complaining that this shouldn't be mandatory. It shouldn't be required. Some of these bigger grows, bigger companies might have the wherewithal to be able to handle their own distribution. Now, the Teamsters aren't alone in this. Local governments are teaming up with them. Police chiefs and, of course, distribution companies are fighting for this independent distribution model. Now, that was written into the medical law in California in 2015. And now the legislators in California, just like Washington, just like Oregon, are working to merge medical and recreational into one regulatory system. The California Growers Association, Hezekiah Allen, California Growers Association, also supporting voluntary distribution for cultivators. On the other side, UFCW, United Food and Commercial Workers, California Cannabis Industry Association, and marijuana manufacturers want to uphold the free market structure of Proposition 64 by allowing growers to distribute the products themselves in most cases. In our chat room, Fulton brings up a very good point. Where were the Teamsters when we were fighting to change laws, but now they want their share? Really? Yeah, exactly. Got a lot of that. Also, you could apply that same idea to the legislators. For how long did we present to them they need to legalize marijuana? You need to legalize marijuana. No, we're not going to bring it up. We're not going to have a hearing. We're not going to have a meeting. We're not going to move a bill. So we do it through initiative power. Oh boy, now they've suddenly got all sorts of ideas about how marijuana should be regulated. Oh, they're all over it now. This is up at sacb.com. You can read this. The lobbyist for the Teamsters, Barry Broad, said, quote, "These are all groups that have never been involved in this marijuana discussion at any stage whatsoever. I don't even know what their position is. This is their first foray into the industry." He's referring to the mainstream groups, the Restaurant Association, the Technology Association, Retailers Association, all of those groups. They've never been involved with the marijuana discussion at any stage whatsoever. Yeah, okay. Does that make your point right or wrong? No. It's like, so they're new to the discussion, just like the legislators are and just like the Teamsters are. What's that problem? And Dombrowski from, what was Dombrowski with? He was with, where is he at? Bill Dombrowski from California Retailers Association said he's been having conversations with marijuana businesses for months and intends to welcome some as new members of his association in the next few weeks. Broad's a friend, and he's told him about the association's interest in expanding into the marijuana retail industry for over a year, Dombrowski has said. Okay, so should there be independent distribution? Well, at least in California, they're talking about cannabis distributors. In Nevada, they wrote the law in Nevada specifically to allow, or so that the mandated independent distribution model, they mandated that has to go to the alcohol distributors. No kidding. In Nevada, to push off any possible opposition from the alcohol distributors, the beer distributors in Nevada, they wrote them into the law to give them first shot for, I think it's 5 years, and the only shot at the licenses for marijuana distribution. Like, obvious quid pro quo, write this in or we'll oppose you kind of stuff. So, yeah, this happens at all levels. There's all sorts of ways that, we talk about politics as the sausage factory. This is part of what you don't want to see, all the compromises that are made and the deals that are made to keep someone from fighting this or that aspect. Now, you could argue, I suppose, that having an independent distribution model guarantees that there'd be more jobs created. And you could say that it would provide a little greater level of control by the state if they're, really thinking that seed to sale tracking works. Let's let them continue to think that, shall we? Everybody I talk to in all of the legal states so far, and they all have some sort of seed to sale tracking, they laugh at it. As if you could keep track of every single gram of cannabis. It's a plant, man. It's alive. There's just no possible way it can be done. And it's being violated all the time, folks. I'm not telling out tales out of school here. I think we all know it. I think Jeff Sessions knows it. But this idea of an independent distribution model, I'm at first take against this. It just sounds to me like a way to raise the price of cannabis in California without any appreciable benefit. What difference does it make who gets the weed from the grow to the retail shop? If the grower wants to load that up in his truck and take it to the shop, I'm fine with that. If the grower wants to give it to somebody else, some third party, who puts it in a truck and takes it to the pot shop, I'm fine with that. But if that latter option means that the price of my weed goes up to help pay that third party, now we've got a problem with that. When are these people going to learn that the only thing that is problematic about marijuana is we have artificially raised its price to that of silver, to that of precious metals and fine gems. We used to be able to say that an ounce of weed costs the same as an ounce of gold, but gold's gone way up since then, so can't say that anymore. But $300 an ounce, $325 an ounce, some places maybe $200 an ounce, but still, for something that should be $20 an ounce, it's that artificially prohibition inflated price of marijuana that causes every single problem that our opponents have with marijuana. The fact that it's expensive leads to the profit motive for people to break the law. It leads to the creation of higher potency strains because when you're selling on an unregulated underground market, you can't advertise. The only cachet your product has is it's the bomb, man. So we breed the hell out of CBD. We get CBD out of the plant and we make the THC as high as it can go in an unregulated market. In the unregulated market, nobody's losing their license for selling to kids or marketing to kids. And that unregulated market continues because there's so much blasted profit in it. Anybody heard lately about the crime and violence associated with the unregulated zucchini market? Bet you haven't. Because I don't know about your family, but my family, everybody had a garden, and every family gathering, everybody brought a whole shit ton of zucchini and asked, hey, do anybody want some zucchini? Want to take some zucchini? No, man, we've got enough zucchini. Nobody fights over zucchini. Nobody shoots people over zucchini. Nobody hangs out in parks on the corners in the schoolyards trying to sell zucchini to anybody else. If you want zucchini, you can get it. It's cheap as hell, and plenty of people grow it. If we went there with cannabis, it'd be the same thing. Hey, man, I just harvested, man. I got a whole bunch of cannabis, some big old buds. Oh, man, we got enough cannabis. My cousin was in from town the other day, man. He had like 6 pounds, dropped off 1.5 pounds. Man, we got plenty of cannabis, man. That's where cannabis should be. It is a weed, right? It is a weed. It should be just so much of it growing. There's no need to fight over it. There's no need to worry about it. It's so ubiquitous, anyone once it can get it, and therefore there's no forbidden fruit aspect to it. There's no worry about it. There's no peer pressure to try it. It's just a freaking weed, and everybody's seen it, and they got plenty of it, and we're sick of it. But no, they want to add independent distributors and seed-to-sale tracking and jack the taxes up to 20, 30, 40% and keep it as expensive as possible because that'll keep it out of the hands of kids, like the $300 prohibition weed has. You bring weed down to $20 an ounce, and it's no longer a big deal to anybody. Nobody cares. And now we're running up against another possible opponent to that. The governments that are banking on this tax revenue from $300 ounces or $200 ounces or $150 ounces even. They don't want to see that price crash because they know that means a reduction in tax revenue unless they create more pot smokers. And there's no government, no state government in the world that's going to start promoting more pot smoking. And even if they did, it isn't going to have that much of an effect. People who want to smoke pot every day already are. Everybody else who might try it, that might use it occasionally, isn't going to use a whole bunch of it. They're going to be those light users, right? I smoke a little puff off a joint before I go to bed. Those kind of guys. So they know those tax revenues are going to decline as marijuana becomes more legal in more places and the price begins to crash. So they'll want to have artificial ways of keeping that price high too. We should not stop till we get the ounce down to $20. Even if that costs governments money, if it costs companies money, it doesn't matter. Let's get pot down to the price it naturally should be. It's a weed, folks. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back and wrap up the show with an interesting story about low THC marijuana in Switzerland. Interesting.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
You're not high? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
All right, maybe you're high, too.
This is Radical Russ Belville with a word about stone driving. Numerous studies have shown that once you factor in age and gender, drivers with cannabis in their system have no statistically greater risk of motor vehicle crashes than sober drivers. But that doesn't mean you ought to be toking and driving. Those studies are referring to people with any amount of THC or metabolite in their system, not people who've just smoked marijuana. Simulators and observed demonstrations show that cannabis consumers do develop a tolerance to the impairing effects of marijuana and can perform driving tasks within an acceptable margin of safety. However, infrequent and novice consumers do not and cannot, and would be wise to never toke and drive. Even regular cannabis consumers should exercise caution before deciding to drive, as most state laws punish drivers harshly if they're discovered to have marijuana in their system. This has been a public service announcement from the Russ Belville Show.
Pod 2.0. It's not your father's Woodstock weed. This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. 54 after the hour. And quick reminder, we'll be back tomorrow with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. Got shows all the rest of this week, so hope to have you here. It's been nice talking with you. In our closing story today, there's a piece from Reuters entitled Swiss Cannabis Entrepreneurs Develop Craving for Low-Potency Pot. So, we've had this discussion before, right? You get Kevin Sabet, you get Jeff Sessions, you get these idiots when it comes to marijuana up talking about how deadly dangerous the weed is. how awful, we're all going to die from the weed. And that's because it's so much more powerful than it is today.
This is high-purity THC content marijuana, and it's not a healthy substance, particularly for young people.
So this is what they really believe. This high-potency marijuana is deadly dangerous and somehow different than what they used to smoke back in the day. So we've had this discussion before, and oftentimes I've said, look, if today's weed is super hyper-potent, not your father's Woodstock weed, and it's so terrible, then the Woodstock weed back in the day isn't as terrible, right? But you were telling us back in the day, how terrible all the weed was, even when it was lower potency. So I've always asked, like, could we just legalize marijuana light? Could we just legalize near beer of marijuana? Could we legalize 3-2 beer of marijuana? I mean, that's how Prohibition ended, right? The first beverages that were allowed after Prohibition ended was 3-2 beer. Weak beer, right? Well, Switzerland has an interesting take on this. Switzerland changed its laws in 2011 to let adults buy and use cannabis with up to 1% THC. Ooh, 1%! But now, it seems that their interest in the industry is picking up. According to Switzerland's customs agency, a spokesperson said, quote, "It started gradually last year, and then suddenly things went crazy in December 2016 and in 2017. End quote. The number of retailers registered to sell low-THC cannabis has risen to 140 retailers from just a handful last year. They're expecting revenues around $25 million on legal sales of $100 million from cannabis in 2017. The figure could be far higher if the boom continues. CannaSwiss, one retailer that uses organically grown low-THC cannabis to smoke or take orally, has quadrupled its staff since last year, and the company still can't keep up with orders. Now, according to one of the founders, he says, quote, "You feel like you should be high because you have a body high, but your mind is completely clear." End quote. And we're really seeing a boom in the last month or two. End quote. So this is interesting because I've often said that legalization is going to lead to more breadth of products when it comes to the potency, and that there's a definite market out there for low THC cannabis. Now, maybe not as low as 1%. But there's a market out there for people who want to get a little relaxed, who want to feel a little relief, but they can't be high. They can't handle being all fogged up at work or, in their day-to-day operations. They just want a little mellow high. And under Prohibition, you can't get that because everybody wants to breed for high THC. Like I was saying in the last segment, that's how you sell your weed, is you got the bomb. Well, that leaves out all the folks, especially older folks, who just might want a little bit of THC, just a little. They talked to a 58-year-old nurse. She says, quote, "I am going to brew it in an herbal tea to fight against pains linked to my joints. I'll try to cook it in small biscuits, but I'd rather eat it than smoke it because I am not a smoker." End quote. So this is fascinating to me, and I'm glad it's happening, and people are starting to recognize that we can have this breadth of products. We can have different varieties and different amounts of THC. And there's a large segment of the population that will welcome that. That will welcome those choices, those lower potency available type of products. So good on you, Switzerland, for legalizing marijuana light. Well, folks, that's all the time we got for today. It's been a hell of a day. It's day one of the great charity boxing match duck out from Mickey Martin. We'll keep an eye on the dates. We'll let you know if he responds. For everyone here at Delta 9 Studios in beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
You're listening to The Russ Belville Show.
I think that as far as drug legalization, we talk about marijuana, and in terms of medical, I think I am basically for that.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere.